In a kingdom where healers shaped history, they're ranked from first class down to third. But outside the system, there's one healer bound by no rules. With powers beyond belief, always surrounded by powerful women, and always ready to heal if the price is right. The story kicks off with a girl named Lily gently rousing our protagonist Xenos, while she makes tea for them. In this world, a first-rate healer is celebrated as someone who can mend not just bodies, but the entire world. And the Kingdom of Hodges works hand in hand with healers to shape history. Their contributions have spurred the nation's growth and earned them high prestige. There is even a Royal Medical Institute where aspiring healers learn advanced healing magic, get licensed, and begin their careers. Yet somewhere in Hodges, an unorthodox healer without formal training makes his mark, a true badass named Xenos. Shortly after, we see Xenos wrap up healing a patient, who pays him and thanks him. Xenos simply says he'll heal anyone who can pay, and after the patient leaves, Lily asks if he's heading out on a house call today. He confirms and promises to be back by dark, while Lily mentions dinner will be waiting. Later, Lily prepares dinner when Carmilla stops by. Lily explains that the food isn't ready yet because she is working on a hearty stew. Carmilla, eager to eat, is told to leave it all to Lily, as she is destined to be Xenos' future bride. With that, Carmilla retreats to her room. Not long after, Zofia arrives at the clinic looking for Xenos. Lily tells her he's on a house call and decides to wait herself. She admits she came early hoping to have Xenos all to herself. Soon enough, Linga shows up too, keen on catching his attention. Lily gives her the same explanation, leaving Linga disappointed. She had planned to get close to Xenos in her own way. Zofia urges Linga to step back, but she refuses to budge. Their bickering is finally cut short when Lily reminds them it is her duty to wait for Xenos. Then Lo enters and announces she's here to have fun with Xenos. Lily informs her that he is not around at the moment and tells her to fix the door she broke before coming in. When Lo finally steps inside, she is surprised to see everyone gathered there. She wonders if Lily's cooking has lured them all, and they tease her by saying she's the only one who would come here for a reason like that. Soon enough, we see that Lily is nearly finished with the cooking and adds a secret herb as the final touch. She tells everyone that dinner will start when Xenos returns and invites them to join at the table. Lily is excited to share the meal, but before that she goes out to collect the clothes drying outside. At the same time, the girls can't wait for dark because the food smells incredible. Lo and Linga slip into the kitchen to sample the stew. They simply can't resist once they realize how delicious it is. They try to explain that they were just having a quick taste, yet they can't seem to stop, even though Zofia warns they'll get scolded by Lily. In the end, even Zofia gives in and takes a bite. As Lily gathers the clothes both outside and near the kitchen, it becomes obvious that the girls have finished the entire stew. Realizing they might be in trouble, they start blaming one another for emptying the pot. They decide to act as if nothing happened, but that plan fails, so they agree to make another meal. Zofia suggests that they start by adding fresh ingredients to the pot. Just as Lily appears and asks what they're doing, the scene shifts to the dinner table where the girls try to feign ignorance, but Lily insists they tell the truth. They admit that the stew smelled so good they couldn't help themselves despite trying to hold back. Their hands acted on their own. Soon they notice how upset Lily is. The girls start arguing and blaming one another, and Lily orders them to stop or else Xenos will be angry when he returns. She explains that she only wanted to have a proper meal with Xenos and everyone else, and the girls quickly apologize, promising to help her cook. Lily then reveals that she only prepared enough ingredients for today. Just then, Carmilla bursts in, furious that they've eaten all of her stew. Linga immediately apologizes, and the others join in. Carmilla demands to know how they're going to make it up to her. She even jokes about eating their souls instead. Lily intervenes and instructs them to bring her the missing ingredients, and they agree to do so, leaving at once. Later, Lily realizes she's used up the last bit of her secret ingredient, and Carmilla asks if she isn't upset. Lily replies that she isn't very angry, which makes Carmilla admire her tolerance. Lily adds that she would have cursed them if they'd not only eaten her food, but also drank her wine, and she wonders if she can still prepare dinner before Xenos comes back. At the same time, we see Xenos in town. As he walks by, he notices a demi-human clutching her stomach in pain. Soon, her master appears, revealing that she is his slave and demands to know where she went. She explains that she suffered a stomachache and went to a clinic for treatment, but they refused to help her because she had no money. Her master, annoyed that she tried to rest over a minor stomachache, drags her back to work. Xenos observes as her master throws her onto a grave, muttering that dirty demi-humans like her belong in a graveyard. His rough treatment seems to summon a ghost. Oblivious to any supernatural sign, he orders her to get up by kicking her in the gut. But she can't rise because of the pain. Still ignoring her cries, he tells her to get to work digging graves. He warns that she will only get food if she manages to find any valuables. Suddenly, the slave attacks him, and blood begins to flow. Startled, he asks what she's doing. It quickly becomes clear that she is possessed, and he tries to run away. On his escape, he runs into Xenos again and begs for help, explaining that his slave has become violent. Xenos tells him to step aside, while the man points at his slave and demands to know what happened. Xenos then asks the nobleman about the last thing he requested from her. The damn tyrant replies that he simply told her to work as usual. When Xenos questions what kind of work that is, he hides the details by saying it was just some farm work. Changing the subject, he complains of his own injuries and begs Xenos to stop the slave, promising to pay him. The slave then attacks the noble, but Xenos intervenes and saves him. Xenos asks the slave why she is so angry. As she hurls stones at him, he easily dodges them. Impressed by his quick moves, the man orders Xenos to kill the slave. Xenos refuses, explaining that his duty is not to take lives. The noble, revealing that he is a noble himself, laments that if this continues he will die. He even says he would simply buy another slave if she dies. Yet Xenos remains firm, declaring that he will save every life he can because he is a healer. The deranged slave lunges at Xenos with a boulder, but he shatters it with his bare hands using some kind of enhancement. The noble watches in disbelief, wondering what type of healer he is, when suddenly the slave attacks him with lightning-fast movements enough to make Xenos doubt she's an ordinary demi-human. She then swipes at him with her claws, but he repels her with a barrier, noticing that his defense has seriously injured her. Still, the slave struggles on, fueled by nothing but hate, and Xenos realizes she's been possessed. He moves in close as she bites him. Surprised by the thought that ghosts can both consume and casually converse, he quickly deduces that some spirits can also possess others. With his magic, Xenos heals her wounds and expels the ghost from her body. Puzzled over what kind of farm work could lead to such possession, he then performs a full exorcism and declares his work done for the day. The noble, startled by how easily Xenos mended the slave's crushed foot, pleads for him to heal his own injuries. Xenos promises to treat him tomorrow, warning that if he waits any longer, he might not survive. The noble insists on immediate healing, but Xenos warns that the cost will be steep and asks if he's willing to pay. The noble hands over all the money he has, claiming it should suffice, but Xenos explains that it isn't enough. The noble grumbles that the fee is already above market rate, hinting that he'd suffer if charged illegally, but he adds that it won't matter since he knows Xenos works without a license. Surprised by the existence of unlicensed healers, Xenos comments that it's a shady business, not unlike grave robbing. The noble tries to act oblivious, but Xenos sees through him and declares that he'll deduct the cost of the slave from the fee. The noble agrees without objection, and Xenos proceeds to heal him, taking the slave's documents as part of the payment. After the noble departs, we later see the slave awakening. She's startled to see him and still suffers from stomach pain. When she asks who he is, he introduces himself as Xenos, explaining that he's effectively bought her. He then asks her name, and she tells him it's Tyru. Xenos orders her to remove her clothes, explaining that he spent a significant amount on her and needs to assess her condition. She's reluctant at first, but she still follows through, and he observes that her bile duct is blocked with gallstones and inflamed. Xenos then heals her in mere seconds, leaving Tyru astonished as she asks exactly what he did. He explains that he simply made a small incision in her stomach, removed all the gallstones, and then sutured it back up cleanly. She's taken aback that he didn't resort to any lengthy chanting or use intricate magic circles, and that his work left no trace at all. Xenos brushes it off, saying it's nothing extraordinary and that any skilled healer could manage this, but she insists that such a feat is far beyond what most could handle. Tyru expresses her heartfelt thanks for saving her and wonders how she might ever repay him. In response, Xenos reveals that he actually has a job for her. He shows her a detailed drawing of a rare herb and asks if she can track it down. Determined, she agrees and accompanies him. Before long, she finds the herb. It turns out to be the very same secret ingredient that Lily used in her cooking earlier. Xenos offers his sincere thanks, although Tyru feels it was a modest task and she had secretly hoped for a more significant challenge. But Xenos explains that his policy is to take payment commensurate with the work done. Despite her feeling that she barely did anything, he is content with her contribution, remarking that without her, he wouldn't have been able to manage. In a final gesture, he rips up her contract papers, declaring her free to choose her own path and do as she wishes. Uncertain about her future direction, Tyru promises that she'll return once she figures out what she truly wants to do. Xenos says his farewells, urging her to come see him if she ever gets hurt. Later that night, Xenos makes his way home, where Lily informs him that dinner is still not ready. Not long after, the three girls return after gathering ingredients, and Xenos can't help but wonder what they've been up to. They try to conceal the fact that they've already devoured his dinner, prompting Lily to decide to start cooking another meal. Xenos then retreats to another room. As he goes by, Carmilla catches a distinct scent of another woman on him, a clue that something interesting might have occurred. He tells her to be quiet, and Lily, busy preparing dinner, asks him to wait a little longer. But Xenos interrupts, requesting a cup of black tea instead. Realizing his need, Lily promptly agrees, announcing that she'll prepare a fresh cup right away. Back in the day, Xenos was part of a top-tier adventurer party. But one day the party leader Astan hurled a gold coin at him as a reminder of his poverty, kicking him out of the group. Astan called Xenos a worthless waste of space, insisting the party would be better off without him. Even though Xenos knew he was the glue holding them together, Astan wouldn't accept any counterargument. In reality, he had recruited Xenos just to use him as a human shield, figuring no one would care if the healer got killed in battle. Now that the party had grown stronger, Xenos tried to explain that their strength came from his healing abilities. Astan retorted that Xenos' self-taught, shady healing skills were worthless, and that any other healer could do a better job. Elsewhere in a dark alley, two slave traders were trying to restrain an elf girl so they could tie her up and sell her later. One of the women cautioned her partner to be careful with her since elves were rare. Keeping her in good condition would fetch a higher price. The man had already pinned her to the ground when the elf Lily refused to surrender without a fight, so she kicks him right where future generations get cancelled. Then she bolted. Her escape, however, was cut short when the man equipped with a bow shot her in the ankle. Lily collapsed, unable to run further, and the traitor quickly caught up to her. He attempted to subdue her once more, but Lily fought back fiercely, biting his hand as if determined to erase his presence. In a desperate move to free himself, the man ended up stabbing her. By chance, Xenos happened to be walking through that same alley and discovered Lily on the ground, bleeding. He demanded to know if these traitors were responsible. They snapped at him, telling him to buzz off since slavery was perfectly legal in this land, and, in their eyes, Lily was their property to do as they pleased. Legally, Xenos had little ground to stand on. Still, an idea sparked in his mind. He offered to buy Lily by handing them the gold coin he'd received from Astan. Most of the time they'd refuse after all. An elf slave was worth far more than a single coin. But seeing her condition and the fact that she was already bleeding out, they took the coin and left. After they're gone, Xenos walks over to Lily to check if she's still alive. Lily, resigned to her fate, tells him to just leave her be, but Xenos insists she isn't going to die. Looking down at her wound, Lily is surprised to see that Xenos has already healed her completely. She thanks him for his help and apologizes for the gold coin he spent to buy her, though Xenos admits he didn't really want to keep it, as it only reminds him of Astan. He asks if she has a home, but given her status as a slave, it's safe to assume she's broke and homeless. Noticing that she's also very hungry, Xenos offers to get her some food and clothes before anything else. Xenos ends up taking her to a nearby diner and even buys her a fresh set of clothes along the way. While Lily happily enjoys the meal, she's puzzled that he didn't order food for himself. Xenos explains that he isn't hungry, even though the truth is that he's really broke. He spent the last of his money on food and clothes for Lily, and after getting kicked out of Golden Phoenix, he's likely going to need a new job soon to avoid starvation. Just then, a man stumbles into the diner, visibly injured in his arm. It's clear he's been through some trouble by the wound's appearance, with a gaping hole and some mild burn marks. Xenos deduces that the man must have been shot by a magic gun. Although the man is a lizard person and his wound might normally heal on its own in a few days, the injury is deep enough that it needs immediate attention. Xenos stretches out his hand and casts a healing spell. Within seconds, the hole in the man's arm seals up perfectly. Startled by the sudden recovery, the man asks who Xenos is. Before Xenos can answer, Lily pipes up declaring that he's a badass healer. Though the man has never heard of Xenos before, he's grateful for the help and hands him a few coins, promising to spread the word. At first, Xenos is a bit confused about the payment, but then he remembers that healers usually get paid for their services. That sparks an idea. He decides to open a clinic and become a professional healer. However, since he hails from the slums, obtaining an official healing license would be difficult. That's why Xenos opts to become an underground healer. Lily doesn't fully catch what Xenos is rambling about, but if he's planning to open a clinic, she's all in to help him out. Xenos pauses to consider the idea. Knowing that starting a clinic without a license is against the law, he's not sure it's right to rope an innocent kid into such shady business. Still, Lily reminds him that he bought her just minutes ago, which in her eyes makes him her master. Therefore, she's bound to stick by him no matter how many rules he breaks. Though Xenos never intended to become her master, he only wanted to assist her. Lily points out that she has nowhere else to go. If he leaves her behind, it'll be his fault if she ends up back as a slave. After some thought, Xenos relents and agrees to let Lily join him. Overjoyed, she swears to serve him with every fiber of her being, though he quickly tells her not to make things awkward. Realizing that setting up a clinic also means he needs to sort out his own homelessness, Xenos takes Lily to an abandoned part of the city in search of a place to stay. Curious, Lily asks why he wants to live there. Xenos explains that he needs to keep a low profile, so the Royal Association won't catch wind of his illegal clinic. Plus the perfect price for his wallet that's been socially distancing from money. Although Lily can't argue with that logic, she's still uneasy. Knows that creepy monsters tend to haunt places like these. Eventually, they find a house that's still in decent shape, and Xenos thinks he's hit the stars finally lined up. However, the moment Lily lays eyes on it, she is terrified because this looks like a haunted house starter pack. She worries that if they get unlucky, they might even run into a wraith. Xenos, clueless about what a wraith is, listens as Lily explains that wraiths are terrifying undead beings capable of turning people into ghosts with just a touch. They step inside, but the darkness forces Lily to use her basic magic to light up the room. Xenos is surprised that she can cast spells at all, though he quickly notes that her tricks aren't very advanced. Once the room is illuminated, they see everything clearly. It's just as rundown as Lily feared, but Xenos stays optimistic. The roof is solid and the support pillars are sturdy overall. It's perfect for setting up his underground clinic. Nonetheless, they encounter one major problem. There's actually a wraith in the house, and it threatens to drain Xenos of his life force. Lily panics, while Xenos is more disappointed that the house came pre-haunted by something with no chill. Suddenly, Carmilla charges at him, but he effortlessly repels her with a healing spell that ends up destroying both of her arms. He isn't at all intimidated by Carmilla back in his Golden Phoenix days. Aston would send him into the labyrinth alone whenever he was in a foul mood, and Xenos had run into countless wraiths there, defeating at least 100 of them. It turns out that healing magic works pretty effectively against undead monsters. Returning to the matter at hand, Xenos apologizes to Carmilla for barging into what appears to be her domain, but explains that there are no other options nearby. He asks if she's alright with him moving in. Carmilla feels insulted that Xenos would even suggest sharing her space, the so-called Queen of Wraiths, and she summons a host of ghost servants to drive him out. Without flinching, Xenos casually uses a high-level healing spell to wipe them all out. Stunned by Xenos' power and beginning to worry he might exorcise her, Carmilla eventually concedes. Not wanting to fight, Xenos asks if she's willing to let him and Lily have at least one bedroom, along with a space to treat future patients. Realizing she can't beat him, Carmilla agrees to let them have the first floor while she keeps the second floor for herself. Xenos thinks that arrangement works out pretty well, though Lily isn't sure whether to be more scared of Xenos or Carmilla. By the next morning, with no patients around, Lily grows bored and asks Xenos if she should either go outside to do some advertising or maybe even kick someone's ass. Xenos, however, advises against it, worried the Royal Hospital might eventually catch wind of their operation. Besides, he's confident it won't be long before they get their first customer. Sure enough, a few seconds later, someone walks in. Lily eagerly rises to greet their first customer and is surprised to see that it's the same guy Xenos healed the day before. Xenos had been expecting him sooner or later after all. Law-abiding citizens don't usually get hit by magic bullets, and people like him would rather avoid the traditional hospital scene for obvious reasons. The man introduces himself as Zond and says he needs Xenos to check on his sister. Xenos agrees to help, and Zofia shows him a minor flesh wound on her arm. She explains that her arm has been acting weird since yesterday, and after one look, Xenos deduces that she was hit by a magic attack laced with poison. Zofia asks if there's anything he can do, but since she endured the wound all night, most of the tissue in her arm is dead. Xenos tells her it's best to amputate the entire arm to prevent the poison from spreading. Although disappointed at the thought of losing an arm, Zofia asks how much it will cost to have it removed. Xenos says she'll need to pay 1,000,000 yen, which immediately infuriates Zond. He finds it outrageous for such a simple procedure. Just as he's ready to start a fight over the price, Zofia intervenes and tries to negotiate with Xenos. She questions whether he really wants to charge so much when she's known as Zofia the Tornado, the leader of one of the 3 gangs in the area, a fact Xenos is well aware of. Yet, he refuses to do the work for free, especially since regeneration takes a lot of effort. Zofia is baffled, having never heard of a healer who could regenerate limbs, and Xenos is equally puzzled, as his self-taught method is something he hasn't seen in other healers. Not knowing what the standard is, he simply asks if she wants to proceed with the procedure. Zofia agrees without hesitation. Xenos then lays her on a table and prepares to amputate her arm. He conjures a magic scalpel, a blade of condensed magic that appears at will. It's super sharp and completely sterile, making it ideal for surgery, though most healers can't perform such feats. He begins the operation by continuously channeling healing magic to numb the area. He then swiftly amputates the infected arm and ramps up his healing power to regenerate a new one. Layer by layer, he rebuilds Zofia's arm until it's as good as new and stops acting weird. Amazed and grateful that Xenos successfully regenerated her arm, Zofia no longer objects to the price. She even promises to send her injured subordinates to him for treatment. Far as Xenos is concerned, if they're throwing coin, they can be as weird as they want. In the days that followed, Xenos was busy treating numerous patients from the Lizardman faction. So Lily brewed some tea to help him relax. Grateful for her thoughtfulness, Xenos couldn't help but wonder why she prepared 3 cups instead of 2. Lily explained that one was for Carmilla, though Xenos wasn't entirely sure if Carmilla would join them until he learned that she actually loves tea. While taking a break, Lily asked Xenos if he'd any idea why the Lizardmen kept getting injured so badly. Based on what he'd seen, he suspected that a turf war was raging between various factions. Then out of nowhere, one faction literally broke through the door. A pack of werewolves stormed into the clinic, and their leader Linga declared that she was determined to kill Xenos. She'd been fighting the Lizardmen for days, and no matter how many she injured, they'd always recovered, so she set her sights on eliminating their healer. For one, Xenos wasn't even affiliated with the Lizardmen, and he preferred avoiding violence. Yet Linga had already ordered her crew to kill him. Despite their ferocity, his defensive magic kept him immovable, unable to be harmed. Realizing brute force wasn't working, Linga resorted to demolishing the clinic. That plan quickly backfired, as the building was also Carmilla's residence, something she wouldn't tolerate being destroyed. The moment Linga and her pack saw the Queen of the Wraiths, Carmilla, fear gripped them, knowing a Wraith was among them, an enemy they could never defeat. Carmilla, infuriated by their intrusion, was ready to drain them of their life force, but Xenos intervened, urging her to calm down. He explained that he didn't want anyone to die in his clinic, noting that none of the attackers had even reached the 2nd floor. As long as Linga and her men agreed to fix the damage, he promised to let it go. Seeing that the Queen of the Wraiths had listened to him, Linga immediately began pleading for forgiveness. Then the next morning, an orc popped into the clinic like he owned the place, saying, "Lo, the big boss of the orcs wanted a word with Xenos."